Have you ever been in a moment with a woman where the conversation seemed fine, but deep down you knew she wasn't feeling it? She smiled politely, but her eyes drifted, and suddenly you felt it, that quiet shift. The spark was gone. You didn't say anything wrong, you didn't break any rules, but something deeper was missing, and you couldn't explain it. Here's the truth no one tells you. Most men don't lose connection because they're unattractive, unfunny, or unworthy. They lose it because they never made her feel anything real. You see, women don't fall for words. They fall for energy, for presence, for the kind of calm, grounded masculinity that makes her feel seen. Without a performance. And here's the twist. You don't have to be loud, or flashy, or clever. You just need to ask the kind of questions that make her feel something she's never felt before. Today, I'm giving you 10 of them. Not pickup lines, not tactics, but real soul-level questions, crafted to pull her out of autopilot and into a space where she actually feels you, delivered with stoic confidence. No chasing, no proving, no pretending, just presence. And the emotional intelligence to lead without saying much at all. So, stay with me, because these 10 questions don't just get her attention. They make her remember you. They make her feel safe, seen and shaken in the best way possible. Let's begin. When did you last feel completely understood without having to explain yourself? Let's not start with small talk, not with "what do you do?" or "what's your favorite movie?" Let's begin somewhere that most conversations never dare to go, straight into the marrow of her being, into the place where words run out and feelings begin. Because here's a truth too many men overlook. Most women spend their entire lives editing themselves, not because they want to, but because they've been conditioned to believe they have. 2. They shrink their emotions into sound bites. They soften their thoughts so they won't be too much. They rehearse silence as a defense mechanism because the world has taught them that speaking freely comes with consequences. They've learned slowly and painfully that complexity is not welcomed, it's filtered out. That depth is inconvenient. That feeling deeply makes you hard to handle. So they adapt, smile politely, and carry the weight of all the things they've never been able to say without having to cushion it for someone else's comfort. So, when you ask a question like this, when was the last time you felt completely understood without having to explain yourself? You're not just asking about a moment. You're opening a portal to something far more sacred. You're inviting her into a space where she doesn't have to translate, where her pauses speak louder than explanations, where her energy doesn't need subtitles. She may look away, her breath might catch, and then, softly, she may tell you about a night with her grandmother in the kitchen, or a long car ride with a friend who simply listened. No advice, no judgment, just silence and presence. Or maybe she brings up a stranger she met once in a bookstore who asked her how she really was and didn't flinch when she told the truth. Or maybe she can't recall a single time. And that, my friend, is when the room gets quieter than silence, because the absence of that memory is the wound. But here's where you show who you are, not with words, but with presence. You don't rush to fill the silence. You don't shrink from her pause. You hold it. Like a man who has mastered the art of stillness, grounded, steady, unafraid, because a woman's truth, raw and unscripted, doesn't need fixing. It needs a witness. And most men aren't strong enough to be that witness. But the one who is, he becomes unforgettable. Not because he dazzled her with clever lines or flashy charm, but because he made her feel something she didn't even know she was starving for: safe, seen, understood. Not just for who she is when she's put together, but for who she is when she finally stops performing. And that's where real connection begins. What's something you've never told anyone, but wish someone would ask about? This isn't just a question, it's a doorway, a slow, deliberate key, unlocking a drawer that's been sealed shut for years. Every woman carries that drawer. It's not hidden because it's shameful, it's hidden because it's precious. And the world hasn't exactly shown itself worthy of her unfiltered truth. Maybe that drawer holds a secret dream she buried when life demanded she be realistic. Maybe it holds grief, the kind she still doesn't have words for. Or maybe it's simply the aching truth of how deeply she wishes someone would ask, and then stay. Because too many times she's opened up halfway, only to be met with discomfort, detachment, or a subject change. So she learned to stop mid-sentence, to tuck things away, to become her own vault, sealed, silent, and safe. But when you ask this question, and your tone isn't invasive but patient, and your eyes don't pry but welcome, you're saying something without saying it. You don't have to filter yourself here. I'm not afraid of your truth. And that, for many women, is revolutionary. She may laugh awkwardly. She may say, "I don't know," even though she does. She may deflect at first, just to test if you really meant it. But if your energy stays grounded, calm, stable, present, you give her permission to exhale, to be messy, to be real, to speak from a place she's kept quiet for far too long. And here's the paradox that most men will never understand. The more centered you are in your masculinity, not loud, not performative, but anchored, the more freedom she feels to access her femininity in its truest form, her softness, her wildness, her sorrow, her unspoken poetry. But here's what separates the boys from the men. Most will ask and then shrink the moment it gets too raw. They'll flinch when tears come. They'll joke to cover the silence. Or worse, they'll offer advice. Because silence scares them, but not you. You don't flinch. You stay. You absorb without needing to add anything. Because your presence is the answer to the question she didn't know she could ask. Can someone hold all of me and not run? And when a woman experiences that kind of space, a space where she doesn't have to perform, pretend, or protect, she doesn't just remember the conversation, she remembers you, because in a world where everyone wants to be interesting, you became unforgettable by simply being interested in what no one else dared to see. What kind of energy makes you feel instantly safe, yet fully alive? This is where the conversation shifts, where you stop being just another man and become the exception. Because while most men fumble around asking, "So what's your type?" as if attraction could be boiled down to eye color, music tastes, or bullet point personalities, you're reaching for something far more elemental. You're not looking for preferences. You're searching for emotional chemistry, the kind of current that runs beneath the surface, invisible, unspoken, but absolutely undeniable. This question doesn't chase logic. It taps into instinct, because every woman has a felt sense, a visceral truth, about what energy makes her body exhale and her soul ignite. She may not have the language for it, but she knows it when it's there, and aches for it when it's not. She wants to feel safe, to let her guard down, to soften, to trust, but she also wants to feel alive, to spark, to laugh from the belly, to feel the air shift when you walk into a room. And too often, the world tells her she has to choose. She dates the kind man who never leads, or the intense one who never makes her feel secure. She's told that having both strength and gentleness, calm and fire, is unrealistic, a fantasy. But when you ask this question, not out of curiosity but out of presence, you give her a moment to remember that she doesn't have to settle. She'll search for the words. She might say, "It's when a man is confident but not cocky, or when he makes me feel held without needing to hold on to me." And as she speaks, she's not just describing a man. She's describing a frequency, a rhythm, a nervous system that dances with her own without stepping on her toes. And if your energy, your tone, your gaze, your grounded stillness matches what she's describing, you won't need to convince her of anything. You won't need to impress, because her body, before her mind even catches up, will already be telling her, "This is it. This is what I was waiting for." And that's not something you say. That's something she feels. It's the difference between a man who tries to win her and one who simply knows who he is and invites her to feel safe being all of who she is. And in that kind of space, there's no competition, because the rest of the world fades when she finally feels safe and alive at the exact same time. 4. What's something you crave in a relationship that most people misunderstand about you? Now we're peeling back another layer, because every woman carries a quiet ache, a longing that's been misread, mislabeled, or simply dismissed too many times. And over the years, she's learned to keep it tucked away. Not because it isn't important, but because bringing it to light has cost her more than it's given back. This is a question that doesn't just touch her emotions. It brushes against the edges of her identity, because here's the reality most men miss. Women aren't hard to understand. They're just tired of explaining themselves to people who never really wanted to understand in the first place. So when you ask her this, you're doing more than being deep. You're reaching into a space where she's stored the parts of herself that the world told her were too much, too intense, too inconvenient. Maybe she craves constant connection, not because she's needy, but because love, to her, feels like presence. And too many partners disappeared while still being physically there. Maybe she needs emotional reassurance, not because she lacks confidence, but because life taught her to expect sudden shifts in the people she trusted most. Maybe she dreams big, speaks passionately, and has been told to calm down when really she just needed someone strong enough to stand with her fire. This question gives her a moment of relief, a pause, a breath she didn't know she was holding, because for once she's not being asked to justify her heart. She's being invited to show it, unfiltered, and if you listen, truly listen, without trying to mold her desire into something more reasonable. If you hold your ground without shrinking or overcompensating, you give her something she rarely receives, the right to feel normal in her emotional truth. Here's the paradox. The very things she's been told are too much are often the most radiant parts of her soul. But those parts only emerge around a man whose strength comes from stillness, not control. That's where you come in. You're not here to fix her. You're not here to match every preference like a resume. You're here to understand the blueprint and then decide with full sovereignty whether it aligns with your own, because the Stoic man doesn't bend himself to fit the mold. He doesn't contort for chemistry. He listens, he sees, and he evaluates whether this connection nourishes both people's truth And in that space, that rare, sacred space where a woman feels free to reveal what she's always had to defend, that's where connection stops being romantic and becomes revolutionary. Who in your life has shaped your view of love the most, and how? This is more than a question. It's a mirror, not for how she loves now, but for how she learned to love in the first place. Because love isn't something we just stumble into. It's something we're taught, directly or indirectly, by the people who held us, hurt us, stayed too long, or left too soon. And this question, it doesn't just invite her to share stories. It invites her to trace the roots of her heart's architecture. Maybe she pauses, not because she's unsure, but because she's scanning her soul for the name she's never said out loud. Was it her mother, who always gave but rarely received? Was it a father who came home but never truly arrived? A sister who protected her like a soldier? A boy who broke her, then blamed her for bleeding? Or maybe it wasn't a person at all. Maybe it was the absence of one. The silence. The unanswered calls. The dinners eaten alone while love sat uninvited outside the door. When she answers, she's not just telling you about someone else. She's telling you why she does what she does in relationships. Why she pulls back when things get too good. Why she clings when she fears the distance. Why she mistrusts forever, even when she craves it more than anything. This is where most men miss the signal. They hear the story, but not the pattern. They offer comfort, but not understanding. They say that's in the past, without realizing that past lives in her present, etched in the way she flinches, forgives, or falls in love too fast. But you're different. You ask with no rush, no agenda. You let the silence stretch. Not to make her speak faster, but to make her feel safer. You know that love isn't healed by passion alone. It's healed by presence. By the steady, unshakable presence of someone who doesn't need to fix the past. Only honor where it led her, and if you're truly listening, you'll hear more than her story. You'll hear her framework. The code her heart still runs on, the hopes she hasn't deleted, the fears she hasn't voiced. And that knowledge, that emotional blueprint, it's not just insight, it's power. Because the man who understands where a woman's love was formed, understands how to hold it now without dropping the pieces she never thought someone could carry. That's the difference between someone who flirts with her and someone who can build with her. And in a world full of noise, you become the man who finally hears the music behind her silence. What's a small gesture from a man that speaks louder than words for you? Some things don't need to be shouted. In fact, the most powerful signals often come wrapped in silence, in the soft edges of attention, in the details that most people overlook. This question cuts through the noise of grand declarations, dramatic promises, and performative love. Because, here's the truth, most women don't fall for loud. They fall for intentional. They don't remember the 3 dozen roses. They remember the 1 cup of coffee made just the way she likes it on a morning when she didn't even know she needed it. They don't replay the trip to Paris. They replay the way his hand found hers in the dark when she was overwhelmed at a family dinner. So when you ask, what's a small gesture that speaks louder than words to you? You're telling her something profound without needing to explain it. I want to learn your language, the kind that doesn't come with subtitles. And she'll pause, because no one's asked her this before. Not really, not without trying. To turn the answer into a tactic, but you're not collecting data, you're creating connection. She might say it's eye contact that doesn't drift when she's talking, or remembering the date of something that mattered to her and no one else. Or a man who notices when she's quiet, not just hears it, but feels it. And when she shares that gesture, you'll realize she's revealing something deeper, her emotional blueprint for love. Because gestures aren't about actions. They're about being known. They're about someone proving in small ways, I see you even when you're not asking to be seen. That's what most men miss. They think love is shown in big moves, big words, big moments, but the feminine heart listens between the lines. It feels through the pauses, and the man who can live in those spaces, not trying to fill them, not trying to perform in them, but simply showing up in them, he becomes unforgettable. Because when a woman sees that a man pays attention to what everyone else overlooks, she instinctively knows, if he sees this, he'll see me, and there's no louder message than that. 7. If love was a feeling, not a word, what would it feel like to you? This question shifts everything, because it doesn't ask her what she thinks about love. It asks her what she feels, and in a world that's constantly defining love through filtered selfies, heart emojis and shallow one-liners, this question invites her into something far more honest and far more sacred. You're not asking her for a definition. You're asking her to tap into her body memory, to bypass language and go straight into sensation. Because here's the thing, love for most people is not a sentence. It's a moment, a shift in the air, a sense that time has softened and the room is holding its breath. So when you look her in the eye and ask, if love wasn't something you said, but something you felt, what would it feel like to you? Her mind will slow down. Not because she's confused, but because she's been invited to feel in a way she rarely gets to. She might say it feels like safety, like coming home to herself in someone else's presence, like being allowed to exhale after holding her breath for far too long. Or maybe it feels like electricity, like being fully awake, fully seen, fully alive. A pulse beneath the surface that reminds her she's still here, and someone finally noticed. She may not even answer right away. And that's good, because when a woman has to think, she's staying polite. But when she pauses, when she closes her eyes or draws her breath deeper, that means she's reaching into her soul for the truth. And when she speaks from that place, you're not just having a conversation, you're creating a connection that transcends explanation. Here's the secret. A woman's answer to this question tells you how to love her. Not with strategy, but with alignment. It reveals what her nervous system responds to, what her heart craves when no one's watching, what part of her has been longing, aching, hoping for someone to ask this exact question. And if your presence, your voice, your stillness, your energy matches the feeling she describes, she won't need more words. She won't need convincing, because her body will recognize what her mind has been searching for all along. Not a man who says all the right things, but a man who feels like the love she's only ever imagined. What makes you feel emotionally naked in a good way? This is not a question for the faint-hearted. It's not for men who want easy answers or surface-level flirtation. Because this isn't about exposure, it's about liberation. You're not asking her what turns her on. You're asking what turns her inside out, in the most beautiful, terrifying, human way possible. To feel emotionally naked is to stand in the presence of someone and not hide. No mask, no act, no script, just the raw, unrehearsed truth of who she really is. Without apology, without armor. It's rare, because for most of her life, she's been taught to guard that part of herself, to filter her passion into politeness, to swallow her fear before it spills out, to be desirable, but never too intense, to be vulnerable, only when it's convenient for someone else. So when you ask, what makes you feel emotionally naked in a good way? You're giving her a chance to touch a part of herself she's been told to keep quiet, and that's holy ground. Maybe it's a moment when someone held eye contact and didn't flinch. Maybe it's a question that went deeper than she expected. Maybe it's a silence that didn't need filling, a space where she felt seen without needing to explain anything. Or maybe she's never felt that safe before. And her answer is a soft, hesitant, I don't know, but I wish I did. That answer isn't a failure, it's a doorway, a beginning, because you weren't asking her to impress you. You were offering her a space to come home to herself. And here's where your presence matters more than your words. Most men will panic at this depth. They'll joke, they'll fidget, they'll offer platitudes to smooth over the discomfort. But you hold the space, unmoved, unrushed, like a steady flame in the middle of a storm. Because a stoic man understands this. Emotional nakedness is not weakness. It's the deepest form of intimacy. And it requires strength, real strength, to meet it with grace. When a woman feels she can drop every performance, every filter, every rehearsed line, and still be cherished in that state. That's when trust is no longer a word. It becomes a felt experience. And in that moment, you're not just another man she talked to. You're the man she became herself around. And that's unforgettable. What's one memory you hope you'll never forget, no matter what happens in life? This question doesn't look into her future. It reaches back, past the routines and relationships, past the masks and milestones, into the hidden vault of her most sacred moments. Because every woman has a memory she holds like a candle in a dark room, a flicker of warmth, of meaning, of identity, that even time dares not erase. And when you ask her this, what's one memory you hope never fades, even when everything else does? You're not asking for nostalgia, you're asking for the thread in her soul she's most afraid to lose. She may close her eyes, her voice might soften. She's not answering you with her mind, she's answering with her body. Maybe it's a quiet sunrise on a rooftop with someone who understood her without words. Maybe it's a childhood afternoon, barefoot in a garden, when the world still felt simple and magic was real. Maybe it's holding someone's hand in a hospital room, a moment of unbearable tenderness and strength frozen in time. Or maybe, heartbreakingly, it's the only time she ever felt truly loved. And she clings to it, not out of longing, but as proof that such love was real. And when she tells you this memory, don't analyze, don't label, just listen. Because you're witnessing something holy, not just her past, but the emotional foundation that shaped how she sees life, love, and meaning. You see, this isn't just a story, it's a compass. Her answer shows you what she values. When everything else falls away, it shows you what she considers sacred. It reveals the kind of beauty, safety, wonder, or connection that still lives at the core of her being, no matter what the world has taken from her. Most men will nod politely and move on. But you receive it. You feel the weight and the light of it without trying to own it or change it. That's what makes you different. Because when a woman shares a memory she treasures, she's giving you a key to something deeply personal, her inner world. And if you hold that key with reverence, with stillness, with unshakable presence, you won't just be a man she enjoys talking to. You'll be the man who made her feel something timeless. Because in asking her what she never wants to forget, you became part of something she'll always remember. Und 10. If a man could see your soul in silence, what would he notice first? This is not a question you ask casually. This is the question you ask when time has slowed, when the masks have softened, when there's enough stillness between you that even her breath starts to feel like a language. You're not asking what she looks like. You're asking what lives beneath everything the world sees, not her accomplishments, not her appearance, not even her personality, but the essence of her. The quiet truth she doesn't announce, the ache behind her laughter, the fire behind her gentleness, the depth behind her calm, because the soul is not always loud. Sometimes it's a whisper that waits for the right person to lean close enough to hear it. And when you ask, if a man could see your soul in silence, what would he notice first? You invite her into a moment few have ever given her. You're not asking her to perform, you're asking her to reveal. She may go still, she may laugh nervously, because how do you put into words the part of you that feels like home, but has never been named? She might say, my resilience, my tenderness, that I'm constantly searching for beauty in places most people overlook, that even when I seem strong, there's a softness I guard like a secret. Or maybe she'll say nothing. Maybe she'll just look at you, eyes suddenly brighter, darker, deeper, and you'll know that she feels seen, not through interrogation, but through invitation. This is the ultimate paradox of masculine presence. It sees without intruding. It hears without pushing. It reveals truth without needing control, because the Stoic man does not seek ownership of a woman's soul. He simply creates a space where it can unfold without fear. Most men are too busy proving themselves to notice the quiet signals. They speak over the sacred. They rush past the beauty. They demand intimacy without ever offering safety. But you are not most men. You don't chase her light. You sit patiently until her shadows feel safe enough to emerge. And when she realizes that your silence is not empty, but anchored, not passive, but alive with awareness, she'll begin to let you see the parts of her no one else has earned. And once that door opens, there is no pretending, no going back, no forgetting, because she will have tasted something she didn't even know she was starving for. To be known, not for what she says or does, but for the quiet truth of who she is when the noise fades. And that is the kind of man a woman doesn't. Just remember, it's the kind she reaches for, in thought, in memory, in desire, long after you've gone silent again. Final reflection. So now you have them. 10 questions not meant to impress, but to invite. 10 doorways, each one leading her further out of performance and deeper into presence. You didn't ask what she does for fun. You asked when she last felt understood. You didn't ask who her celebrity crush is. You asked what kind of energy makes her breathe and burn at the same time. You didn't seek the highlight reel. You sought the sacred, the silent, the soft and unspoken, and that's what separates you from the noise. Because while most men are busy talking, you were listening. While they were trying to be liked, you were becoming still enough to be trusted. You asked the questions that made her remember who she is when she's no longer shrinking. You made her feel without chasing, without proving, without touching a single inch of her body, yet somehow touching all of her. That's not game, that's emotional leadership, that's presence, that's power. And here's what few men will ever understand. When you hold space like that, when you're the one she can be silent with, unguarded with, real with, you become unforgettable, not because you demanded her attention, but because you gave her the rarest gift of all, the freedom to be felt, instead of just figured out. So if you've made it here, you're not looking for shortcuts. You're not chasing a script. You're becoming the kind of man who makes a woman not just fall in love, but feel safe enough to stay in love because she can finally bring all of herself forward. That's rare. That's real. And that, my friend, is what you'll never stop thinking about, long after the conversation ends.